particular outcome, and then they've actually observed on a mathematical level that the outcome favors that intention. And it's replicable, it's repeatable, and it's actually measurable. So that means that consciousness interferes with the subtle laws of nature, just by intention. And they've also noticed with telepathy that they demonstrated most people experience telepathy, which means that consciousness is not bound by the laws of nature as we observe other elements. There are many, many examples of this. I don't have time to go into it in any detail, but transcoherence is something that's being used as a word to describe the problems, the problems that mechanistic scientists have in many parts of nature. When we observe a thought going off in the human brain, a very quick chemical reaction takes place in the brain where the pineal gland will secrete these complex hormones and neuropeptides, these proteins, which within a fraction of a second leave the pineal gland and are like little machines with keys. And they know exactly where to go to the keyhole that's dedicated to that key, which is called a neurotransmitter elsewhere in the brain. And then all of a sudden we can respond, and we can speak, and we can think, and we can integrate all our senses. That happens in a nanosecond. And they've observed it happening so fast on so many different levels, Hare Krishna, that they can't seem to observe the space in between the cause and the effect. What does that mean? It means that it's happening at the speed of light or faster. This isn't me making it up. I'm not making this up. This is what scientists are observing. And what that suggests is what, again, they're calling transcoherence. Now that's even featured in the study of metallurgy. They found out at CERN Laboratory in Switzerland, where they have the world's largest atom smasher, as the years go by, they use these particles as bullets to explode plutonium, uranium, ruthenium, all kinds of metals, palladium. And every year, they're requiring more and more velocity and more cesium to create the same amount of fission or an explosion. What does that mean? What does that mean? My question is, why is the metal resisting? As the years go by, the metal is showing up a resistance to this interference.
You suggested that there's an element of consciousness there.
Yes, thank you. It's not an element of consciousness. Yes, it is an element of consciousness. It's called coherence. Whether you obtain that metal from South Africa or northern Saudi Arabia or from South America, the metals are behaving in the same way. And they are not showing that they like having themselves being bombarded with these particles. So every year it becomes more and more resistant. That's called an antipathogenic response in an organism. Now these metals are showing a kind of transcoherence. So it's happening on a human cognitive level, it's happening on a biological level, and it's also happening on an elemental level with the entire metallurgic field.
So what's happening is that it's becoming immune to what they're doing all the time. Right?
Exactly.
It's got a consciousness to kind of...
It's an immune response, Pedro. Thank you. Now, who would have believed that a metal could exhibit an immune response? So, the Akashic field serves... okay, we already read that. So, it works as a way of expressing a clear way to interpret cognitive non-locality, remote viewing, ESP, dowsing, memory transference, DNA transcription, and the hypercoherence of translocality of biological and cosmological systems. We'll hear more about the Akashic field again shortly. Stevenson collated over 4,000 spontaneous testimonies unaided by hypnosis, many of which were later validated. Among them were Muslims, Jews, and Christians throughout the world, where the conception of transmigration was definitely not part of their native culture or religious upbringing. So we've run out of time. Thank you very much for your patience and your sense of humor. I'm sorry that we started a little bit late and my presentation was not altogether consistent. Would anyone like to make another comment or question before we close?
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing what you just said. I never knew that metal could have consciousness to co-exist or keep trying to develop against what the scientists actually doing. Like, it's like, that's what you just said, I had no idea. I thought it was just matter and it was dead, but it seems like there is a tiny, tiny bit of consciousness that is keeping.
Actually, when we look at it, matter is super conscious. All forms of matter. When you look at elements and how they cohere into molecules, look at the formation of the molecule. We take it for granted because we move it. We don't understand anything. Krishna says, Daivihi Shibunamani, Mama Maya Duratiya. My material energy is divine. It's not unconscious, it's super conscious. But we look at it and we see that it doesn't have the animate qualities of consciousness that we identify with.
Just a lower form of consciousness.
Well, it's different. It's Krishna's energy. And
It's very intelligent.
just look at that example of the sir in the laboratory. It's super conscious. But we don't see it. Prabhu, just a sec. What?
What about the fact that it does not display the 6 changes in writing?
That's very good. What's your name? Dhruva is asking, was that because matter does not exhibit the six patterns of metabolism? Well, that could be a good answer. That's the difference between para property and apara property, or consciousness and matter. Yes, please. Yes.
No, I was just saying from what you said. Obviously, I came in late, which I'm very disappointed. Obviously your exposition is very interesting, and you've given a very accessible account of the fact that all these elements ultimately have an ancestor, and that ancestor is Krishna or Rama. And you summed it up beautifully, really, in terms of actually combining the ancestral thoughts of these great figures, and also having that very special thread that binds all these theories together, which ultimately links to a creator.
Amen. What's your name, please?
My name is Rama.
Rama, thank you, Rama. Okay, thank you very much. We've run out of time. Appreciate your... So I have a little announcement to make. Tomorrow is the Thames River Festival. It's a cultural event, and devotees will be offering prasadam and having a table out there and doing various things to spread Mahaprabhu's mercy. So if anyone would like to help, would you please approach Kashinath Prabhu, please, with chopping vegetables, and or you can actually, right after prasadam, you can come straight down. We could do with your help then. If possible, please join us and share your enthusiasm. Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your patience. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Gopi Vallabha Prabhu Ki.
Jai. Prabhupada ki. Jai.